Well, a very good evening, and thank you for those attending. I'll be interested to see who else turns up, so we shall see. Right, item 1, apologies for... Thank you very much.
Through you, Chair, we also have apologies for absence from Councillor Sturgis Alex, with Councillor Sargent substituting, and from Councillor Anna King, and also apologies from Stuart Lackenby, the Executive Director, People Services.
Excellent. Oh, thank you. Right. Third item, well, actually the second item, is declarations of interest. I'm just going to read this one out. So, to receive any declarations of interest, West Northamptonshire Council takes seriously any breach of the Code of Conduct. Councillors need only declare an interest that has not been recorded in the Register of Interest. Any councillor who declares such an interest must remove themselves for the whole item. Councillors are asked to declare the item number in which they have an interest, the nature of the interest, and whether there is a disclosable pecuniary interest or a non-statutory interest. Is there anybody that has any interest to declare tonight?
No, Chair.
I thought not, but thank you very much indeed. Item 3 is the minutes. They are on pages 5 to 10, and I'll just quickly go through, but if on page 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Is everybody happy that we sign those as a correct record? I believe that was correct.
Yeah, it's recorded.
This is recorded.
Page 5, apologies. Sorry, it doesn't appear in the list of members, but under apologies for absence, it's got, yeah, it does have apologies received from Councillor Sally Beardsworth.
Paragraph 1.
Okay.
Yes, you are there. No, because obviously you off for some time, so I'm glad to have you back. Okay, are you happy if I sign the minutes as a correct record? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Just making sure. Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. Okay, really the only item I really wish to raise under my bit is to say that we are now in the new committee room. The Jeffrey room is no longer, so all the meetings will now take place in this committee room. That's a good call. That wasn't particularly... I think it's actually warmer than it was in the last committee that we were in on there. But yes, it's a very valid point. So, good. Yeah. Absolutely. The good news is, if the fire alarm goes, we do have easy access. No, they're doors. So that's got one advantage, but hopefully that will not be happening. Okay. Item 5 is on send, and we're delighted to say we have Ben Pearson here, who is our Assistant Director, who's going to provide an update. And Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Quite an echo there. Colleagues, you should all have in your pack of papers a reasonably detailed document that I plan to take you through. I'm not going to go through the minutiae of it, which provides an overview of the partnership's progress, particularly against our priority action plan. Sorry, can you hear that echo as I'm speaking? Try and move that out of the way.
It's fine, it's just giving you a nice order.
So, a couple of things before I go into the detail of the report, if that's okay. Firstly, because of the timescales of producing and publishing this report and the timescales of our formal governance around our SEND partnership, the report that you have was tabled to our December board. Our January board happened yesterday. So what I couldn't do, obviously, is give you the January papers because they needed to be shared through that board and endorsed through that board. So we are a month out of kilter coming here, but what I'll be able to do is obviously give you a verbal update of any improvements, any changes that were discussed and were agreed yesterday through our board, if that's okay. So before I get into the detail of the report, and I'll take you through each of the key work stream areas, where we are and where we're going next, and then obviously happy to take any questions. A couple of overarching updates. So firstly, one of the requirements from our inspection, and this is the Ofsted and the Department for Education demand this of us, it's a formal statutory notice, we have to appoint an independent chair of our board. So there are only currently about half a dozen people in the country that have got the credibility, the knowledge, the skills and the capacity to do that role. We are very, very fortunate in West Northants. We have appointed a chair. It's a gentleman called Mrunal Sisodia. He is nationally recognised as a leader in SEND. He is a parent of a child with very complex needs himself. He has been the chair of the National Parent Carer Forum. He was awarded a very significant award. He got an MBE through his services to SEND through COVID period in particular. Professionally, he is the chair of the East of England Ambulance Trust at the moment. He's only come here, being really honest, because I have, and a number of our other colleagues in health and in social care, have worked with Mrunal before. I've had the pleasure of working with him for about 5 or 6 years before. He will add a huge amount of value to our partnership. He is incredibly astute. He's incredibly clear about his expectations, primarily as a dad, but also as a professional, and he has already made a difference, I believe, in terms of holding the council, but also, really importantly for us, holding all of the partners across our partnership to account. So he will meet with Anna as the Chief Exec and Toby Sanders, the Chief Exec of the ICB, monthly to provide those updates, and he will bring that challenge through Mel, through myself, through leaders in health and social care as well. He chaired the first meeting yesterday, and he is really going to push us very hard, but also support us to make that improvement journey. So I think that's the first thing I wanted to update. Very, very pleased to have Mrunal as part of our local partnership. That has also brought a lot of credibility with our parents because, as I said, primarily Mrunal works in this world as a parent. So that's the first update. The second update, which I alluded to at the very top of the report, but I can now give a bit more verbal feedback on, as part of the process, as we go through our inspection cycle, we have to complete a couple of deep dives. So they happen every 6 weeks or so with the Department for Education and the NHS England, and twice between our inspection and when we'll be revisited, we have a stock take, which is the much more formal, and that's where real accountability comes from more senior colleagues in the DfE and NHS England. We had that stock take on the 9th of January. We still don't have the formal feedback yet, but we will have that very soon. But the verbal feedback I can give is that colleagues in both the DfE and NHS England are satisfied with the progress we are making. We're doing the right things, we're doing them in the right way. They are very clear that we are working as a partnership and we're in this together, that we have clarity in our vision, clarity in our priorities and clarity in what we're going to do. Their challenge to us is you need to keep running at pace and you need to keep driving all of that work forwards. And I'll pick up on a couple of the particular areas that they are supporting us but also challenging us with as we go through that improvement journey. When we've got the formal feedback, I'll incorporate that into a future report that I bring here. So they're the overarching updates that weren't in here, that obviously they've come since I shared the report and since that was published. If I just go to the report, and I'm going to pick out some highlights in each of these areas and then I'll stop and ask for comments. This report is written around our 4 key work streams, and the report that you've got also goes to our SEND board, it goes to Health and Wellbeing Board. Mel and I have been at the Integrated Care Partnership today. We have taken this report there as well. So we're trying to use the same reporting everywhere, so everybody is very clear of where we are, what we've achieved, but also what we need to do next. So the first work stream there is around our partnership and leadership. The 2 really key things in our partnership and leadership work. First is we have to complete a joint strategic needs assessment for all children and young people with additional needs. and that will be completed, presented to the Health and Wellbeing Board in April. What that joint strategic needs assessment should really do is not just look at individual siloed evidence of need. It should look at the dependencies of needs and how that impacts upon children's development in other areas. And the example I will often use here, if we know there are currently 4-year waiting lists for children to have an ADHD diagnosis. What we need to understand more, and we are developing that understanding now, is what happens to those children in school. Are those children being excluded more often than their peers? Are they being suspended? Is their school attendance worse? Is their school attainment worse? What's the impact on their social care needs as well? So we have that holistic view of a child, not the view in silos of organisations or services. A lot of work going on underneath to develop that JSNA. As I said, that will be presented to Health and Wellbeing Board for approval in April, and that will be a really key evidence base for us as we move forward to the second key element of this, which is our joint commissioning strategy. So, key strategic partners, we need to have a strategic approach for how we commission services moving forwards. It's not just about spending money. It's about how we use all the resources that we have at our disposal to make a difference for these children and young people. That evidence base comes first. The JSNA, the Joint Commissioning Strategy, will follow that. Again, that is under development across the partnership. That is planned to go to the Health and Wellbeing Board for approval in April as well. So as soon as they are developed, I will obviously bring those back here, and happy to have the conversation about the detail of exactly what they sit and what they include there. So that's that first big work stream and those first key priorities of work there. We'll move to the second one. Councillor Bidwell, happy to pause now? Yeah, of course.
I'll speak into this because it makes it easier for people to hear. You say you're doing things differently, and but what I want to know is, what weren't you doing before and what are you doing now that has made a difference? Because it's outcomes really that we're looking at. We also want to know how many children are, and I know it's an awful thing to say, but a lot of these children will need care in later life. And we've got to look at that in the way of those children will need care maybe all of their lives. So when they get 18, they'll come into adult care and we will pick up the bill for looking after them. So we've really got to make sure that we make government, whoever's in charge at the time, aware of the cost this is going to create and the fact that we want to do the very best for these children when they're adults as well as when they're children. And that is, I mean, they're even doing programmes on television about SEND children at the moment and not getting into school. You know, it's a very, very emotive subject. To me, it's a worry that what I want to know is, what were you doing that was wrong? What are you doing now that's better and working? Sorry, so maybe a bit of a couple of examples would be great.
Not a problem. Councillor Bizzer, if it's okay, the question around older children and going into adulthood, if I can save that for a moment, because I've got an update around exactly that world on the next page. In terms of what we're doing differently now. So, be really frank, there was not a joint strategic needs assessment. It didn't exist. There was not a joint commissioning strategy. Didn't exist. So, very, very simply, the right people around the table and agreeing on what our priorities are, how we will use our resources best to meet needs, how we'll be able to demonstrate outcomes and the impact of that investment or the changes to those services. So a really good example would be the way we're recommissioning 0 to 19 services. We are doing that together, using the evidence from all of our services to understand what we want to prioritise and what the impact of that will be. And that's why we always start here with that evidence base of needs of children and families. We've had a good understanding within the council. Our health colleagues would say they've had a good understanding in health, and our social care colleagues would say the same, but we've never done that read across of the impact of, by doing this, it has a knock-on effect over here. So we need to look at it from a holistic child and family, not from a service. That's the biggest change in that area that is progress. And a lot of this, I believe, has evolved through the investment, and that is a financial investment from the council, a significant investment in new leadership, in new colleagues within the council. but also the investment in our people and our partnerships. So we have had to go through some really painful discussions, and our relationship with our colleagues in health, in social care, and our parents started on a really rocky footing. And they were tough. And you know, I've been there and I've taken the challenge from all of our partners. The feedback we always get from the DFE, from NHS England, we got earlier from the Integrated Care Partnership, it is very clear that we are a partnership. We understand each other, we know each other, and we've had those really painful, frank conversations. So that's what we're doing really differently. Is that okay? And then I'll come back to the PFA one in a moment. If I move us on to the next area, which is around right support, right time and right place, I think that probably gives you a clue of what that whole area is about. A couple of really key bits to update on there. So this is obviously very linked to the developing family hub and early help approach that we are developing in West Northants. So understanding children's needs, providing support or intervening at the very earliest stage, so we don't wait till children or families get into crisis. That's what I've shared here before. That's what was reported back following our inspection. So a big effort to get in early, and a huge drive for us in the council there that will really make a difference here is working with colleagues from the Department for Education and education leaders nationally to make sure every one of our schools understands what they should be doing for every child. And in the education landscape, that's described as ordinarily available provision. We have never as a council specified what that means in West Northants. That's what we are doing now. And we're doing that with our new team of specialist teachers, really experienced expert Senkos who are able to walk the walk with schools and really hold schools to account with what they should be doing. So and I'm not saying this happens all the time, but I've got a child with an additional need, I need loads of money or they need a special school place. This is what you can do to meet those needs in every single classroom up and down the country. That's what we're really challenging there. So big emphasis on right support, right time, right place. And again, that real emphasis on early help and getting in early. What we hope there, if we meet needs early, we reduce that demand for education, health and care plans, because you don't need that. That's not the only solution at all, which gives us the ability to really focus on those children that really do need that significant additional support. Okay, so that's a lot of work in there. Again, all partnership-wide. If I just move on to the... Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes, please.
Just related to, sorry, I was a little bit late, so you know already covered this. I finished work at 6, so please accept my apologies for being late. Very quickly, mental health. So how are we working with the NHS for children that have got mental health difficulties and ensuring that they've got the right EHPC plans in place? And what does that waiting list look like?
So, slightly later, there is some information around waiting lists. One of the things I touched on briefly earlier on that joint understanding is exactly that. So what we have requested from our health colleagues, and they are developing right now, I want every single child's name that's on a waiting list, and I want to be able to cross-reference to all of our evidence of where children are in school, whether they're attaining, whether they are being suspended, excluded, etc., so we can have that real read across. We are challenging and holding our health colleagues to account around things like waiting lists for CAMS, for speech and language, for diagnosis as well. And we're doing that through every avenue we can, through, as I said earlier, Health and Wellbeing Board. We've been to the Integrated Care Partnership Board today. I know the Chief Exec is having those conversations with the Chief Exec of the ICB as well to really start to make a difference in the health world. What we have done, I know it's a slight aside, and I know I've explained this here before, we knew we had that issue with our educational psychologists, so the council invested significantly, and we're really driving the way that we improve the timeliness and the quality of our assessments so we can move that forward. What we want is the same in health. So we'll keep taking that through the right channels and raising that in the right way. That crossover between CAMS and a lot of this cohort, you're absolutely right to ask.
On the other side, health colleagues are saying that the council's holding them back in the, releasing the HCPs and getting those to them in a timely manner. They've got a long list of children that are waiting. And the other thing is, when these children are waiting and then turning into adults, then what kind of support are they getting? To the point that Sally just made as well. Sorry, may I just
In a minute. I think one of the things that you said that I think is really important is this notion that you need an EHCP, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've got. So, for example, not every child with a diagnosis of autism needs an education, health and care plan. Not every child with a mental health needs an education, health and care plan. So I think and I heard it at the ICP today where quite a senior person within health said, you know, they can't have the EHCP because they haven't got a diagnosis. That is absolute rubbish. But I do believe that some parents believe that.
But then again, it's a communication thing. How are we clarifying that for parents so they don't have that in their head?
Yeah.
So are we getting that
But that's why some parents go for a private diagnosis. Because actually it's not about for me, it's not necessarily about the diagnosis that's the most important bit. It's about what is that child's needs at that point in time and how do we meet it. And that links into what Ben was talking about, ordinarily available. You know, there's mental health, school nurses for mental health. There's lots of things out there. And I think part of the challenge we've got locally and then probably nationally is in relation to parental requests. So we've got an exceptionally high number of parents that make requests for education, health and care plans. So part of our improvement is looking at that. So it's about why is that parent feeling that they can't speak to their school, or is there something that the school isn't doing? And we're doing some work around which schools are the highest numbers of parental requests coming from, because actually that's about giving reassurance to parents. And clearly, I think locally and nationally, there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of trust with local authority, with health, with schools, academies, and I think we are in this vicious circle that we have to do something differently about that. So I think this notion of you need a diagnosis for a plan is not correct. But you're right, it's communication, isn't it?
Great. If I'll carry on to the next two areas. Next one, again, reasonably self-explanatory in its title. This is us really focusing on the timeliness and the quality of the education, health and care plans that we issue. And just to really reiterate what Mel said, which I couldn't agree more with, at the moment in West Northants, we have far too many requests for EHCPs. We are quite a way under the national average of children identified with SEND support, so with an additional need, but not the need for that plan. So that comes from our schools. We do not identify that. We are 1 full % lower than the national average. We're more than that lower than our regional average. So there's something around, and we can identify individual schools not being able to put the level of support in early, just immediately, either directly themselves or encouraging families to just write for a plan because it's the only way you'll get support. Breaking that culture and that cycle is going to be challenging, but we're on that. So we know, and I know colleagues, I've raised this here before, we know that we do not issue enough plans on time. Less than 50% are issued nationally on time. So this is a really, really tough ask for all of us in that partnership, especially when we have those backlogs of assessments that we need to clear. So the work we're doing here, really embedding new people, new staff, that investment that we have made, new heads of service, new managers, new officers on the ground. Those new colleagues coming in are bringing a new standard of this is what good looks like and this is how we improve the way we work internally. That also is, we are very close, I'm confident, of embedding the use of new technology into that team. So using some AI, not to write plans at all, but to look at those early requests for assessment and to speed up that communication and automate a lot of that communication, which frankly at the moment is really clunky and really time consuming. So investment in the systems that colleagues use, investment in more staff, and investment in training all of our staff so we are absolutely assured they all have the same knowledge, the same skills and the same abilities to be able to do their work. What I would like to share as a positive, because I really believe this is a positive, we are getting far more compliments than we have ever received, and we are getting fewer complaints than we have ever received. There are still too many, one is too many, but the compliments we're starting to get from parents in particular about the quality of the education, health and care plan they have for their child, but also about their experience of dealing with the council and partners, We save those. Mel and I get those regularly. We save all of those. We'll obviously always congratulate the staff, but we're saving those so we understand that we are making a difference. So we don't just want to learn from bad, we want to learn from good as well. But it's really encouraging to see the amount of children, the amount of families coming forward saying thank you. And just to use one example, this has been used in 2 separate meetings today, so I feel I'm going to use it in a third. One of our parent carer forum colleagues shared at the ICP today for the first time that she has been involved ever, and she has worked in West Northants for about 20 years in this field. She was shared an EHCP of one of their members today, yesterday. She said it's the first time ever she would not make a single amendment. She said it was just brilliant. Family are over the moon with it. It gives a perfect depiction of their child, of their strengths, of their areas for need, and the provision that is needed as well. It's a brilliant example. That's down to the training and the support we've put into the staff and to those staff putting that in place. So things are definitely moving in this area. This will continue to be a really big pressure, as it is for every partnership up and down the country, because we know we need to get quality plans and get them issued as soon as possible. Pinder, sorry.
Great point on that. We were just talking about comms a minute ago, and you mentioned the positive feedback.
Could you use the mic?
Yeah, sorry. What about Mike?
Yeah, sorry. We were just talking about comms and just touching upon that positive feedback. I think it would lift a lot of morale for council staff, as well as give the right message out in the public. If you were to, somehow share that message that's going out as well, to look at that improvement, because we've had a lot of negative noise. It'd be good to get some positive noise as well.
I think that's a really key point, in particular in relation to compliments. So weekly I have a surgery, I call it, with compliments and complaints. So we always do the complaints to make sure we're on track, and MP inquiries, councillor inquiries, etc. But we always end with the compliments. And previously we never logged them. So we've also, in terms of communication with staff, I'm just about to sign it off tomorrow, we've started a new newsletter for staff monthly. And within that, my first introduction is giving an example of 3 or 4 compliments, because staff are, they're on their knees, let's be honest. Within this environment, it's really challenging. They get a lot of flack, they get a lot of criticism, they get a lot of public criticism, and they're all doing the very best that they possibly can in a climate that's difficult nationally. So I think for me, it's not just about the parents and the families and making sure children get what they want, but it's also supporting our workforce as well.
It's about retaining that staff and that talent as well.
Yes, Sally.
I was on corporate parenting the other month, and we were talking about how do you get feedback from your staff to actually, and they said they were going to do like a suggestion box online, and I think that would be quite ideal, because if people can just vent if they want to, but if they want to come through and say, it would be easier if I did it this way, or I really need a little bit of extra training on this. It's actually having the communication from the people doing the job up to the people that make the decisions to have that feedback, and I think people do appreciate that. And you can make it anonymous if you want to, so if you're going to get a bit of criticism, we can all face a bit of criticism. I'm sure we all do every day, but I think it would be a really good thing for the staff's morale to know that we are listening to what how they're doing, and even if it's a little rant, it's fine.
Can I come straight back to that, Councillor Biswell? I completely agree with everything you said. Just to give some reassurance here, since Mel arrived, one of the first things we did is we met with every single member of staff together, and one of the main areas we talked about was communication. And it was partly a challenge from us to say this has to get better, and we will give you the tools and the support to make it better, but it was also about internal communication. So on the back of that, what we've done, we've opened up a number of times completely anonymous feedback from every member of staff through Mentimeter. What's good, what's bad, what do you want to change, what do you want to keep? A couple of things that have come out of that we've acted on really quickly. One is the newsletter Mel mentioned already. That will be done. We will share all of those compliments. We will celebrate the success of our peers. One is our staff ask for regular opportunities to meet with us as the leaders. So every fortnight we have a completely open session for half an hour. Anyone can come and bring anything they like. We'll always provide a bit of an update about what's happening corporately or our engagement with the DFE, etc. All our staff come to that and they ask questions, they share ideas. And through the last 6 months, in developing the new structures and the new organisation within the teams, at every stage we have held open sessions with members of staff from every layer of the organisation. We're not just talking to managers at all, we're talking to people who've been here working in as administrators, as any other role, certainly those colleagues that have been here a long time. What we're really trying to encourage them is to see change as a positive, not as a criticism and a negative. So a lot of work has gone into that. As you'd expect, working with 200 plus employees, there have been some people that have found that very, very challenging and very difficult. And change is always very difficult and quite often very personal. So there have been some people that have said, actually, no, I don't buy into that change, and have gone. And obviously we'll go with our blessing. At the moment, the feedback we're getting is the clarity now of the reasons why we're changing and how we're changing the way we do our job is really refreshing for staff. And you're starting to see that in that morale. And I am confident that will lead into staff retention as well.
It's an old saying, if you do things together or with us rather than for us. And I think that's a big thing with management, that people have lost sight of that over the years. You know, I'm very important, I'm a manager, and the rest of the people work for me. And I think that's got to change.
Absolutely agree. I'll move us on to our last point in a second. Just to re-emphasise that point, when we produced our SEND and AP strategy last year, which I know I brought through here, absolutely fundamental part of that is our commitment to co-production. And primarily that was our commitment to parent carers and to partners as well. We take that co-production approach with our staff as well. We'll work with you. Sometimes there needs to be a direction. That's fine. But we will always open and we'll always listen and we'll always welcome for new ideas. So that co-production we take seriously internally and externally. If I just move on to the last area, which is around some of the comments that were raised earlier on around that preparation for adulthood. So this was not a priority area for Ofsted, just to be really clear. This is an area that they raised as a recommendation for us to look at, which was absolutely right. We had already identified this within our strategy, so we have continued this work on. What we are really focusing on in that PFA world at the moment, we've co-produced a booklet of advice and guidance and information for professionals and families that is now published. It's got loads of information in about everything you need to know as your child moves into being a young person and a young adult. And a huge drive there is do not wait until it's too late. Preparation for adulthood doesn't start at 16 or 18. It should start really early. Really, really early if we get it right. The big areas of focus in this group at the moment are trying to join up the world of employment, and that goes from voluntary opportunities through internships, through apprenticeships, through paid employment, and the world of education and younger people. So we've already held we've held actually 3 events now. So Fiona and I have met with businesses to present to businesses about the benefits of young people. Do not just see special educational needs as a barrier, see the benefits that the young people will bring to you. So obviously we had some young people on the stage talking about their experiences and some employers as well. And we've got a series of events coming up to bring together families who are interested at looking at those opportunities and our internship apprenticeship providers and a lot of local businesses as well. And we're really trying to push, as I said, though, the real benefits that the young people with additional needs can bring to employers. And I'm very confident that will start to make a difference. The other side there you touched on briefly earlier is that transition from health or social care services in the children's world into adults as well. Our view is that needs to be as seamless as possible. So the big drive for us is we want to know these young people when they're 13, 14, so we can start that process really, really early, give families all the information they need, so there isn't that last minute worry of thresholds being slightly different or people dropping through gaps. There is a lot of work to do in this area nationally, but also locally as well. But they're the key areas that we are looking at as the partnership, and we're driving forwards. So right at the beginning, the DfE and NHS England satisfied with what we're doing. There's a long way for us to keep pushing this forward, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. I'm conscious I've spoken for a long time. Underneath, there is a lot of data underneath, which I don't propose we get into all of the detail of that data, but if there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer that. What I would say is that to get to this stage has taken a long time. Be very clear about the cohorts we're talking about from all the different services. We are just starting to move to using that data to inform what we do next, which is where we need to be, and that links into all that JSNA discussion as well. So more than happy to take any sort of comments, questions about any of the detail in there.
Very quickly, do you have any dates for those events yet?
I've got, there's one date which is the 21st of March, which is an event that we've been developing with Barclaycard. I'm very happy to share the details of those events. If anyone is interested, I can come along. Yeah, of course.
Wendy, please. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I think that data is quite easy to get, isn't it, about how many children are excluded from school if they've got ADHD and things, because and I think it's pretty high, isn't it? And I think a lot of the time it is because schools cannot meet their needs. They're not professionals. They don't know how to react. And then what happens once they're excluded? You know, that is the big thing. Are they just? I know that we're now looking more. It's going to be more monitoring them if they're at home. But where else do they go? Are we going to have we got that provision, or are we going to look at more working with schools so as they know how to work with our young people?
When if I can come, I think there's 3 bits in there. We know who the children are that are being excluded. If there is a diagnosis, then we know they've got a diagnosis. The challenge for us at the moment is that what we haven't known, we will know very, very shortly, is those young people on a waiting list for a diagnosis who are being excluded, because obviously we don't know because they haven't had it yet. So what we're having to do is go right down to individual NHS numbers and individual numbers on our side, match it at that level. That's the complexity of that. But obviously we know those children who are being excluded, suspended, and we're able to challenge schools there. On the other couple of questions, we have already written to all of our schools and our multi-academy trusts, asking them to express an interest of running alternative provision within their school sites. So we've done that exercise already. What we are now doing is developing the exact specification of what we want that to look like, and we'll run the second stage of a competitive process, all the schools, based on the evidence that we know we have to meet, to try and develop that provision where young people are just not coping in mainstream education. Our schools are really keen to work with us on that, to the point they are now talking about contributing financially to what that model will look like. That is miles away from where I first started these conversations with schools in West Northants. So I am confident that we will move towards that, a much better model of alternative provision. And the last point around children staying in school, it's not just this team, but this team are really at the spearhead of it. We've appointed that team of specialist teachers. They've never existed here before. So we have 4 people in that area. One's an ex-head who has an ex-head teacher who has a real expertise around SEND and inclusion. She leads the team. The other 3 are really experienced SENCOs. They've worked in a number of different local areas, including in central London, including in West Northants as well. So they know what good practice looks like. There will be very few children or cohorts of children they will see that they won't have seen before, and they won't know what provision looks like to meet their needs and to support those children to stay in school. That's what they are focused on. So they started in September. They've already made a big difference with the schools they're working on, and they're working in a very targeted way for where we know we've got schools with high exclusions, high percentage of SEND, or high requests for assessment. So we're really trying to deploy that team to reduce that level of suspensions, exclusions, and children having to be moved to different provision. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, Melanie, yes. Then Fiona.
Just in terms of the exclusion, so what Ben described is the sort of whole school approach, so not looking at individual children in particular, but one thing that I've definitely seen, and we've seen from the data, is the number of exclusions is ridiculously high. It's shockingly high. So I think, if I'm being really open and honest, I think part of the challenge that school would say to the local authority is you have not been responsive when we've been saying we need help with these children. So we've definitely changed our practice in terms of that. And I wouldn't say it's a success, because it shouldn't get to the point anyway. But I've been involved as well with colleagues in the team where exclusions have been rescinded. and actually we've got the child back in, and that's even gone through the governing body and to an appeal panel. So that shows I think there's an issue for us with some schools that they are too quick to exclude. But equally, from a local authority perspective, when we get a call from a school saying we just don't know what to do, then we make sure that we're responsive. So the message we want to give to schools is don't exclude, contact us first. And that might mean that yes, it's agreed they can't stay where they are because it's just not suitable, but equally it also gives the opportunity for maybe an alternative provision, you know, whatever that might be, because what we don't want is exclusion on a child's record, because that stays with them forever, and people read into exclusions with issues that may not actually be there. So I think we are progressing in that area slowly, but it's definitely an area of focus for us.
Yeah.
It was just an information point, really. We've done an awful lot of work on our local offer, putting all the different things that are available for families with children with SEND needs, not just council services, but all the charitable services that there are available, and anybody that's there for advice, etc., etc. So I would advocate anybody to, if they get in a family, contact them, to put them in touch with a local offer. It's easy to find. It's on a website and on Facebook, and there's masses of help and information on there for families that they can click into and get some support.
I mean, Ben, one of the good things is that considering the March 24 inspection, which brought doom and gloom, the actual plan to get signed off by the DFE was encouraging, because I know other authorities have really struggled. I think what the committee tonight will be really pleased about is the appointment of the new chair, who is going to obviously be somebody who will resonate well for everybody. He knows, he's going to know the issues. He's obviously got a track record, and I think we are so lucky to have him on that team, considering that there are not that many people. And I think in terms of any report, this was the December report, obviously this is showing some good signs. I think we all recognise there are issues, and one of the beauties is that Scrutiny was doing a working party and then stopped. We've now got a report which is in the public domain, so people can now see on a regular basis, if they're interested, what is going on. And what I'm seeing tonight is positivity, that we're putting the child first and actually want to help people, because you're absolutely right. Schools, I'm not saying this is relative to SEND, but I did notice, I'm sure you've seen it as well, I think it's Devon County Council have actually decided to charge every school £21,000 for every child they exclude. Now the money is actually school money, so they reckon £5 million, don't ask me why, would come back into new provision. I don't know that necessarily that is something that is good, but yes.
Please don't do that. We are trying to work with these people, not work against them. No. Because I would never. The whole point is, I'm so pleased that the communication is so much better.
Yeah.
I think that's the key to everything. If everybody understands, we've all got budgets. We've all got things we've got to live with. So, you know, this is the thing. I worry about children that are excluded, not just SEND children, but other children. And, you know, they're left to go and walk the streets, do things that they shouldn't do, and then they end up with a prison sentence when they're later on they get involved in crime, county life, those sort of things.
Don't panic.
But don't. What I'm saying, please carry on the way you're doing with communication. No. And punishment doesn't always work. Punishment doesn't always work.
It's all right, Sally. It was not advocated. It was just one of those very strange things. I know Melanie wants to come up, but what I'm really saying is I think the committee at the moment are really delighted with the progress, and I think, Ben, that when we bring you back every couple of months, it's absolutely key essential. There, obviously, because it's got such an embodied group of people, it's very difficult to say, oh, you're doing this, why are you not doing that? That is not what we're here to do. We want to know what's there, we want to help. If we thought it was, we need more money, well, we could do things and encourage. But I think you're on the right track, and we know it's a process that you're going to go through. Melanie, obviously you wanted to come
Yeah, I
back.
was going to touch on the exclusion thing that Councillor Beersworth said, but I'm not going to now because we're not going to do it, is all I would say. Although it's successful, is what I would say, but it's not when you haven't got great relations. I worked in an authority that did that. Yeah. It wasn't quite £21,000, very few exclusions, because it's actually a deterrent. But you've got to have good relationships with schools to be able to do that, and they need to buy in, which is, we're a bit, So that was the first thing. And I think the other thing which, and thank you for the words that you've said, I think what we now need to be shown is impact of that, because actually what we've described are all the things we're doing. We can give small nuggets of it's making an impact here, but actually we need to give a more broader evidence of impact. And I'll just end with just giving an example of that. So in terms of the compliments, clearly we look at what are the themes in compliments, just as we look at the themes of what are in complaints. And it's really good to see that the themes coming from our compliments are communication, which is and that's because of what we've put in terms of improving our communication with parents and with other professionals. So for myself and Ben now, and obviously for Councillor Baker, it's about, so what impact are we making? So we're saying what we're doing, but what is the actual impact for families and children? Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions, or is everybody happy? Right? Well, in which case, thank you very much indeed. I think most members have all had a chance to ask all the questions. Thank you for coming along, Ben, and thank you very much indeed.
Chair, could I,
Yes, of course.
could I bring something up? It's regards to the planning committee. Regards to the planning committee, and being on the planning committee last 14 years on and off, there's a lot of colleagues on there, councillors, that are a little bit confused. There was 4 or 5 planning applications for assisted living for young adults. I don't know if they were learning disabilities. I don't know if it was antisocial behaviour. And I was sitting in that room. This was in the town council, but we get it on both planning when you're sitting there. And I just think they all need education. And because they've got the wrong end of the stick, you've got people sitting there saying, oh, it's privatised and the local authority is giving them £4,000 per child per week. This is a joke. We're not approving it. You know, so if you've got that mentality as a sitting councillor on a planning department, please educate them and please tell them that you know better and that we don't just throw money at private sector. I'm sure everything gets scrutinised, but I just think our councillors need to be better educated in the process. Please, pretty please.
Okay. Right. I'll leave that with the officers. Okay, right. Well, that's right. Okay, shall we now move to the next item? Yeah. Right. Welcome, Louise, to come.
And team.
Check, just quickly say, as the colleagues are showing, everything we've talked about is our partnership. Lots of colleagues coming here are very much part of that same partnership, so we work really closely together. Helen, Louise and Miranda, etc. We spend lots of time together talking about all of these issues. So.
Yeah.
Nameplate.
Yes. Good evening, Louise. I know you've got some colleagues. Would you just like to introduce them, if that's possible?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So I'm Louise Di Chiara. I'm Assistant Director for Commissioning, Transformation and Governance at North Hampshire Children's Trust. And I've brought some colleagues with me who are also involved in short breaks and respite. So,
Hi, I'm Miranda Tafumane and I'm a Director of Nursing in the ICB.
Really?
And then I'm Helen Sarrett, and I'm here representing I'm part of the West Northants Voices in Partnership, the Parent Carer Forum.
Good evening.
Hello, I'm Susan Connor. I'm Head of Service. I work for Action for Children and I'm accountable for the delivery of this contract.
Lovely.
Hi, I'm Anna Wong. I work in the ICB. I'm a transformation manager and I've got the children's therapies in my portfolio.
Right. Louisa, over to you.
So, yes, thanks for having us back. So I was previously here in September 23, providing you with an update of where we were at in terms of our redesign of short breaks for children with disabilities and respite. And it follows on really nicely from the last item that you've just had, because short breaks is part of the local offer for children in West and North Northants who've got disabilities, and it's really essential, important support for families who need a break, be that during the daytime or overnight, and also to give children that opportunity to socialise and do fun activities and leisure activities with their peers who may not be able to access general mainstream universal activities that are out there. So last time I came and presented the redesign work that we've done so far. At that point we were about to go out into a third stage consultation. So following our attendance here, we did that third stage consultation, which was really helpful. We had about 150 people respond to the electronic survey, and about another 130 attending 10 workshops that we did across the whole of the county. And we were asking about the final model that we'd designed based on the previous consultation. The outcome of that was really helpful, because we got some feedback around our proposals that we did then change what we were going to do. So colleagues may remember that part of our challenge was that we have a significant amount of resource going into the overnight specialist end of overnight provision, and there wasn't really enough in terms of the daytime earlier help support for families. And what we wanted to do was shift that to enable families to access more support for children with more complex needs during the day, as well as those who needed an overnight break to be able to have it when they wanted. The challenge was being able to do that within the resources available and with the existing model that we had of two different services. So the proposal was to bring services together. We initially were suggesting that we reduce the number of nights in order to shift some of the resources. What we heard back from families was they didn't want us to reduce the number of nights. They wanted to keep overnight breaks open for 7 nights. So that is what we've done. There was an alternative suggestion to have fewer spaces available for children in those overnight provisions in order for us to be able to deliver within the budget that we had available. There are also some other suggested changes. So we were proposing to include sleep support within the redesigned service. Families said, actually, we want you to keep that separate. It does need a review. It does need further work doing. Handle that separately, which we did. And also in terms of having specific support for children with sensory needs, again, we incorporated within the overall offer for children to be able to access activities just as part of the overall offer. So that was really important doing that third consultation. We then did a final design and with colleagues in ICB and with the councils, we agreed actually we need to do a bit more financial modelling just to test it out and make sure that it's going to work. And so we agreed to extend what we had in place until the end of September 2024. That was to allow us to go out to tender after we'd done the financial modelling and to give us enough time to do mobilisation, because colleagues will remember that NHFT, who were providing the overnight breaks, were not able to continue delivering that afterwards. And they didn't bid for the tender. So we then went out for tender. We had 8 organisations bid, of which 1 met the quality criteria, which was Action for Children. And Action for Children were already delivering the daytime breaks, so really well placed to know the cohort of children and young people, know the local area. They deliver other services within Northants as well, so really know our children, know the local area. That went live the new service went live from 1st November. It has been quite challenging. We were aware that as a NHS-run service that some of those NHS staff may want to prefer to stay within the NHS, and we did see some of those staff leave before the transfer over to Action for Children. So there wasn't sufficient staff to deliver the full service from day one, but we were well aware of that, and we agreed collectively we'll continue delivering but a reduced number of nights, and allow Action for Children to build up and recruit, particularly to the nursing staff within one of the overnight units. So the daytime activities have continued as planned, and are starting to now increase in terms of the range and numbers of activities that are available, and Sue can share a little bit more about what's happened there. And the overnight provision, one of the overnight units for children who have ADHD, autistic spectrum condition, that's continued to run at full capacity. Our overnight breaks for children that have got more medical nursing needs has been running at a lower capacity, but is building up as recruitment and onboarding and training takes place, because obviously it's really important that the staff have got the right level of training and skills to be able to support the needs of our children. So we've seen some real benefits of having the model and the services come together. So there's been cross-training and staff working across the two areas in terms of daytime and overnight. Action for Children have been able to access charity funds for our children, so they've benefited from trips out, they've benefited from Christmas gifts and vouchers, which has been fantastic. And we're in the stage now of really developing the community hub, which will help build peer support, volunteer support to enable children to also access more within their local community as well. Our Parrot Care Forum have been involved all along, been really fantastic. Helen's been involved all along in terms of supporting our steering group, being part of our steering group, and really important to be feeding in what parents are saying on the ground and helping us shape the service as it is. So I'll stop there. I don't know if does anybody want to add anything before we open for questions?
Councillor Bearsworth would like to ask you a question, if that's okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm always asking questions. It's terrible, really. But how many children do we have that need this care for a start? One thing. And I was a nurse, I was a Marie Curie nurse, and we go to stay with patients, so you get to build up a relationship with the family and the patient as well. But I mean, they're not patients, they're children. But also something that if you've got a nurse that will go to a home, and if you could try and keep them in that, they build up a relationship of trust. I think that would be quite a good way to look. It's not always possible, but if that's something you're looking at.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got about 65 children across North and West Northants that are accessing the overnight short breaks, and about 24 of those are from West Northants. And absolutely, so some of the staff who were previously working for NHFT transferred over, so the children and families knew those staff well, and then Sue's been really busy recruiting and onboarding new staff as well, and we really wanted to make sure that although we weren't able to offer the full amount of nights from day one, that we were spreading that out across the children, so that the new staff were getting to know the children and families as well. And Sue and colleagues are in regular communication with families as well.
Yeah. We've also seen the return of 5 nurses who previously worked at Squirrels, who left to remain with NHS, but then have come back on casual contracts with Action for Children, and they are working quite regular shifts actually, and really enjoying being back there.
Councillor Chan.
So you spoke about putting a cap, I think it was a cap, wasn't it, on the amount of children that the service can take. What happens if there's additional demand to, and that caps at full capacity?
So we'll be monitoring that really, really closely. And we did a lot of modelling in terms of numbers of children that we currently have, forecasts, and the model is also predicated on us having a better offer outside of the overnight provision as well, which some families may find beneficial, but we absolutely appreciate that some families will need that overnight provision. So the other thing we have in place is Action for Children have a target around having the occupancy of those beds kept higher than it was previously, so that better use is being made out of those. And Sue's already introduced, or about to introduce, messaging to parents to remind them of that they've got their breaks coming up. If anybody has to cancel for any reason, that goes out to families straight away. Does anybody need, would anybody like to take up an overnight break? And we're monitoring collectively what that demand is. There's a multi-agency panel that agrees if a child would benefit from an overnight break as well. So we're monitoring that and watching that. If we did need to change that at all, the units are of a size where we could make changes, and obviously we'd look across the board in terms of how we would make that work with the staffing. But one of the benefits of having the new model as it is that there is more flexibility for staff to work across the different elements of the service as well.
I think also, in answer to that, working very closely with our social care colleagues and families, and identifying in review meetings where the young person is in their journey. So if they're coming to more of a transition age, how do we look at other activities and daytime activities? Is the need for the overnight the same as it was maybe 4 years ago when they were introduced? How do we move young people and children through to meet their needs at every stage of their development?
What happens when they get to 18? Does this all stop?
So the service is for up to 18-year-olds, but part of what we really want to develop within the new model is that supporting families, as Ben was just talking about before, supporting them well before that 18 age, and within all the different support that's being provided to help them to build some of those independent skills. I believe that there is some adult provision available, but it's not at the same level as you might imagine. So it's about supporting families to be able to move into the next phase.
John Grisham has having some works done that you hope to have done with some decoration, is it? Am I?
At JDS, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we are. We're doing some internal decoration.
Right.
So we have been to visit a couple of other homes as well in different areas and brought back some ideas, haven't we? Helen came along with that, and one of the first things I do want to do is make a little mini cinema room for the children in one of the bedrooms that isn't being used anymore. We've also already brought in some wall stickers, throws, cushions. Decoration is set to take place in February. Young people are choosing items as well. So, yeah, we're having swinging hammocks for a couple of the rooms. We're looking at different lighting, but again, with the young person's voice running throughout.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
Things we've done with elderly people is rather than put numbers on rooms, we've done pictures, because children don't always associate with figures, but they'll recognise a picture.
Yeah, we have that already. Yes, the young people's pictures are on there. And again, to meet their sensory needs, it is some young people can cope with a number of things and bright colours and different displays, and other children can't. So we're very mindful that we personalise each of the rooms before that young person comes to stay.
You also said you had 6 medical people on the NHS who came back to do extra shifts, but you're still planning to get permanency if you can. And is the plan still to try and hit March? Or is that something that's going to be flexible?
I think it's going to have to be flexible. So we have the bank of casual staff employed by Action for Children who have come back. We also have the previous manager who's come back on agency to do a few shifts. So she's back there on occasions as well. And we have another agency worker who's supporting with that. We had 1 full-time, 2 part-time nurses who 2P transferred across, and they've since been joined by a part-time nurse, and a full-time nurse is going to start working there on Monday. We are having one of our 2P transferred part-time nurses going to leave us in the middle of March, so we will have a gap of 3 full-time staff nursing. We've gone out to recruitment a couple of times, and unfortunately nurses who apply not always have the skills and experience with the young people and children with learning disabilities as well as complex health needs. So we just do keep trying, but that is the area of concern, I have to say, for Squirrels, is getting not just the nurses coming through, but having the time to get to know the children, because where you have 30 children attending different packages of care on different days, matching those to the nurses, ensuring the nurses have got the training to meet the needs of those individual children, knowing their likes, dislikes, it's a lot, and that will be a slow progress. We've moved forward with that from where we were on the 1st of November, but it will be a slow journey in supporting the team all the way through that.
Thank you very much.
So just to add to that, in the meantime, as Sue has explained, there are agency workers and cover to help us keep it open as much as we can. And obviously, as soon as new staff come on board, when we're able to offer more nights to families, we're doing that as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that anybody wants to ask? Does Ben or Melanie want to ask anything? Everything good? Good. Right. Well, sorry.
Just really quick, the work they've done, I think, together has been fantastic, and that commitment to having parents' voices all the way through is absolutely there. Just go back to the comment we made earlier. What we really need to hear now is the impact of all of this hard work on families. And it's not just that impact on that individual child, as it is mum and dad having that bit of respite time. It's that wider impact, which it can be life-changing for families, just having the right provision. So I know Helen and Louisa and colleagues, we've got lots of plans in place. My hope is we'll be able to give you really detailed, and this is how we know it's making a difference.
Well, considering we met in 2023, a year on, and it's really starting to take shape, I think it's very encouraging. Really good. Well, thank you all very much indeed. And thank you for coming, and you can go home earlier than you thought you were. Thank you very much. That was exceptionally good. Right. Let's just have a look. Okay, the next item is a review of the committee work programme, 51 to 54. I don't. No, I think yes. 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 Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming. Sorry, you were about to say.
No.
There you go. I'll let you do this.
Oh, you thought it was somebody else?
We are webcasting live, councillors.
Yes, we are webcasting. Yes, we will be. Okay, James. Are you on?
Can't see the light. Thank you, Chair. So this is clearly the standard item that comes to each meeting of the committee to enable it to take stock of its existing work programme, look at what it may previously have identified. It wants to consider how that may change, new items, potential additions or rescheduling, with a view to ensuring that the committee's resources are hopefully always most focused on those areas where it can achieve best outcomes, make most difference. So, looking at the next meeting of this committee, so there are 2 items listed. Firstly, on educational attainment in West Northamptonshire, which is a topic that the committee has looked at in the past, and usually attracts a considerable amount of interest and discussion. So looking at areas including elective home education, exclusions and absences from school. That's something that the committee said it wanted to give quite a strong focus to at its March meeting. And then more on the housekeeping side, the March meeting will be the last Scrutiny Committee meeting before the end of the civic year, which is also the end of this 4-year term. So the committee will be asked to agree its annual report on its activity over the past year. Did you want me to speak about the date of the March meeting at this point, Chair?
Save me.
James, I thought at the next meeting we were going to discuss, obviously, exclusions, and that comes under the first one. But I thought we were going to look at homeschooling as well, because that was something I was very concerned about the increase in children homeschooling, and you know, with the terrible things that have happened to that little girl recently. We just don't know how the safeguarding is happening for children at home.
Yes, very much so. I'm not a specialist myself, but elective home education is the technical term. Yes. Homeschooling is what probably most people refer to it as.
Yes. Are we happy as a committee to take those 2 items?
Yes.
Because as we've had tonight's meeting with the SEN report, I think it would be preferable to drop that to April or to May, after the next election. Yeah. It's going in the right direction. That's lovely. Well, if we're happy on that, that is good news. I will now come to... this is where...
Are we still looking at this one?
Yes, we can.
Housing allocation scheme.
Yeah, I just said that's one I've
just got to be confirmed.
Yes,
You know,
now it's working.
Yeah, so as members have highlighted, the work programme includes various topics which the committee has said it wants to look at, but has not at that stage said, and we would like to look at this at the following date. So they are very much in the gift of the committee to say, you've said what, to say when.
You want to go for April?
Yes,
All right. Happy with that, everybody?
Well, it wouldn't be April.
Well, I'm sorry, it's going to be May or... Well,
it would be...
I think it is May. I think there is a meeting.
What's the date? It's
May the 1st.
So I can't recall the date of the first meeting of this Scrutiny Committee in 25-26 off the top of my head, but it's likely to be at some point, possibly late June, early July.
We'll just put it on the agenda.
So housing allocations as a topic for the first meeting of the new committee.
Right. I just need to... I've already had a discussion with Sally and Wendy. Our committee meeting, members would have been aware that the original date was brought forward to the 10th of March. The 10th of March happens to be the Conservative group's group meeting, to which on there, and we have a problem. The reason why the meeting's gone forward is because the council is going to go earlier with the PERDA effectively after the council meeting because of the number, as I've been told, number of council seats that are going to be going up for election. It's much larger, presumably with parishes as well, etc. So they want to spend more time getting information out. Now, obviously, we wouldn't be able to have a lovely discussion that we want to have if we went to the end of March. But we do have a date, and it's unfortunate it happens to be on the eve of the full council meeting, so it would be Wednesday the 12th of March. That Wendy and Sally are happy with, I'm happy with, and I just hope members will be happy, because I think the item in question... No, so Wednesday the 12th, and full council's on the 13th. So if everybody's happy, the officers would be delighted. So with that, we'll say definitely Wednesday the 12th for our health education scrutiny committee. And James,
I think that's subject to confirmation with the monitoring officer, but the committee's clearly given a clear view about its preference.
Yes, and we are meeting the criteria of at least conforming to the cut-off date. So good, lovely. Okay. In which case, I do not have... Sorry, yes, sorry, Brian.
Do you have any other business? It's only a short one. I was at Briar Hill this afternoon with about 6 officers. We have a monthly sick unit. We have these various meetings throughout the year. Ray Connor was there. And there was a wellbeing officer who was interviewing people privately outside from the estate of Briar Hill. And she had a no-show, so she came into us. This woman was absolutely inspiring. The enthusiasm bubbled out of her. I've never met anybody like her. She sucked in. If this is one of our officers, if she's only an average one, she was absolutely brilliant. She's part of a 100-officer group. I know they get brickbats, but this woman, you know, Anne Green, if I'm allowed to mention it, I'd like it mentioned in dispatches. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Why not give her credit?
Yeah.
She should come and speak to us because she's across the board. Well, you'll get her on the well-being.
Send her an email.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian. That's good. Thank you very much indeed.
You can send her an email.
Where that was going.
So did I. So I shouldn't have dropped that, but still.
I said I'd mention her in dispatches tonight.
Yeah. Well, we've allowed you that. Well, anyhow, thank you very much indeed, and hopefully see you all in a few weeks' time. Thank you very much indeed.